Henry, the season?
Oh, it's been a relatively kind season really so far. A little bit on probably the little cooler side. A little bit of frost around, and I'm sure you've had somebody talk to you about the frost. And we keep getting these little bits of rainfall that keep topping up the soil moisture, doing diddly squat to the groundwater system. But it has been helping out those people that might not have any groundwater, particularly this year for irrigation, and also for those that are on that have got very low water levels, and we do have very low water levels. Excuse me. Pretty much all over Canterbury, groundwater levels are relatively low, and the storages that are in the ground, of course, then mean that when you've got low water levels, you're going to have some self-limiting bores, so you probably won't be able to pump all of the water that you would otherwise be able to pump. I mean, I know of a couple of people that have had to cut back from sort of that 80 litres a second in their bores back to about 60, so they're 20 litres a second down already, because if they switch on and take the full 80, then the water levels drop to the point they go out on low water level. So we know those problems exist out there right now, but the weather we've been having is really very favourable in terms of the irrigators, because we really haven't had to do any significant irrigation to date.
So there are those, though, that are starting with no access to water.
Yes, there are a whole bunch of people that have consents, what we call the adaptive management consents. They were granted back in the 2005 to 2008 period of earlier this decade, where if water levels aren't above a certain point, a certain level in their bores on the 1st of September, then they have either no access or restricted access to water, and a large proportion of those adaptive management consents are without water for the 2016-17 irrigation season at the moment. We were sort of hoping that maybe September would have brought some significant rainfall, or maybe even October brought some significant rainfall and raised the groundwater levels, but they haven't. So those people are looking down the barrel at no irrigation water for the season. So they've been very fortunate to date that we haven't had to do very much in the way of irrigation.
Pretty expensive exercise, because you're paying for that right, and then they take it away from you.
Yeah, I mean, when we went through, we was one of those expert witnesses that went for the farmers when we went through these hearings with Environment Canterbury. They got access to water in some years, or most of the years that we modelled, but they knew at the time that this would come around again. And this is, very much a mirror image of what happened in the early 2000s. So if you go back to the early 2000s, leading up to 2005-06, we had three winters in a row where we got very, very little rainfall recharge. We depend to a large extent for irrigation water in groundwater on rainfall recharge, and we do on most of the alluvial plains in New Zealand. So the Hiratonga Plains to a slightly lesser extent, but the Wairau Plains, parts of the Wairarapa, we depend very much on getting that rainfall recharge during the winter, and that didn't occur in those times. And if you look at the 2013, 14 and 15, 2014, 15 and 16 winters, we had virtually no groundwater recharge at all from rainfall. So it's sort of like the perfect storm in a way: low rainfall recharge, high demand, high irrigation demand. Because if you look at the 14-15 season and the 15-16 season, they were relatively high irrigation demand seasons, and the groundwater levels are really low. And the perfect storm has occurred again 10 years after we went through all the hearings.
Farm environmental plans.
Yeah, most farmers are aware that these are required. You need to do a farm environmental plan. It's not as daunting as a lot of people think it is. It's about really just recording all the things that you've done on the farm. So basically recording your rainfall and your soil types and the type of farming you've got, the type of irrigation you're using, getting an overseer modelling done to set your base levels for your nutrients, so you know what you need to achieve in the future as far as nutrient losses are, particularly nitrate to groundwater. So it's a gathering together of records, and the hardest thing for some of the farmers is that they don't have those records. They haven't kept a record of A, when they put fertiliser on, B, how much they put on, who put it on, what form it was, how many lambs, for example, they might have carried over in the winter, which paddocks they were on, what they were eating, how much supplement was brought in. So it's forming the cornerstone of the nutrient management program, and farmers and everybody alike are on board with that. I mean, we want our streams to be cleaner than they are. We want to reduce the nitrates. If we can save on the stuff going out into the groundwater, then that's a saving for the farm as well. So, I mean, there's benefits in this, but it's the time is nigh. We need to have got these things done, and it is impressing upon people the necessity really to keep much better records than we have in the past of what we actually do, and where it actually happened on the farm. Yeah.
So if they haven't done them, where do they get that?
Oh, they get them done if they're in a scheme, for example, in an irrigation scheme like the Waimakariri scheme or the Ashburton Lyndhurst. Then within those schemes, they've got somebody in there that's preparing farm environmental plans. You can get them done by your fertiliser reps. There's a bunch of agricultural consultants out there that are doing farm environmental plans.
So people aren't on their own?
No, they're not on their own at all. No, not at all.
Good. Consents to farm.
That's the next. That's the next issue in front of farmers in some of the zones and some of the groundwater zones in Canterbury, and I think you can be assured that what happens in the Canterbury region. I mean, we're pretty much leading the way in New Zealand of where things are going. There will be a requirement, or there is going to be a requirement, to get a land use consent to be able to farm. And that's a step on from the farm environmental management plan. So it's about consenting the activities that you're going to do as far as farming is concerned, and that cornerstone farm environmental plan forms the basis for that. So it's how you're going to put your fertiliser on, what sort of stocking numbers you're going to have, what your nutrient losses are likely to be, and staying within those conditions of the land use consent.
And that's real heavy bureaucracy, because you've got to do it.
You've got to do it. It's in the plan. It's already in the plan that's operative, the land and water plan that's operative, and it's just a little bit out there in the future, but it's there, and they're there to stay. And unless there's a plan change, which would seem highly unlikely, then it's there to stay, and they're going to have to be done.
And you can't get away with it, Tony, but thank you.